my running back pick, I feel I don't want this to sound hedgy, but I just love both Steelers running backs at their prices. And I'll tell you who's my favorite, but I can make the case for both of them, which I'll do. I'll tell you who I'm going more often, but ultimately I'm trying to get at least about half and half of these guys in nearly every draft. And that's what I've been doing so far between Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. Let's just talk about the overall environment improvements, why I like this backfield to target Arthur Smith for all his faults. And you can certainly bring those up as a play caller, especially as a passing game play caller, and the way he used Kyle Pitts and misused so much of his talent. I get that. Yet when he has been, no matter where he's been, the rushing attack has been very, very solid. The Titans averaging 153.5 yards per game throughout his seasons calling plays in Tennessee. Yes, you have Derrick Henry. I get that, but still, he crafts a very explosive blocking scheme, very unique. The 2022 Falcons went from 31st overall in rushing to 3rd in the league in rushing under his watch. So Arthur Smith, yes, he has his faults, but as a run game play caller, this guy gets volume and it's nice creative usage as well. And then you look at the line. This is going to be by far the best line the Steelers have had since Najee Harris arrived there. They go with the number 1 guard in Dane Brugler's rankings at pick number 20. Round 2, what do? They go and get Zach Frazier, another beastly tackle. They just completely load up 3 investments in the line this last year, a first-round tackle, Broderick Jones the year before. So they are clearly trying to get back to those roots of Steelers football, and I think they're going to succeed at a massive level. So then you look at Najee, the floor pick, the guy that I certainly want to get on plenty of teams, and I would say I go with him if I don't have a running back through those first 6-7 rounds. This is the one I want to go for because you know he's going to be the starter. You know he's going to eat some volume, and I think he's going to really perform quite well this year. So he is my preferred pick, certainly, especially if I have not taken a running back yet. 250 touches, 1,000-plus rush yards, and 7 touchdowns in every single season so far in his career has been the running back 4, 14, and 22 across his 3 seasons. And I get that, a little bit concerning. It's gone downhill for each of them, and yet right now he is going as the running back 24 in fantasy drafts at pick 86.5. So definitely getting a solid value. He's never finished worse than 22. And I think he's going to have a big rebound. All the talk is because they didn't give him that 5th-year option that he is really motivated. He's already dropped 8 pounds in this offseason. I cannot wait to see what Najee Harris to slim down. And he really finished strong last year, 24.2 and 21.8 points in his last 2 games. Tomlin came out and said, I love to use Najee Harris ultimately in those final weeks when he's bearing down a defense. And that's when we need people the most. You talk about backloaded production, and yes, it's typically rookies. We talked about it on last week's Week 17 episode, but sometimes these bruising type of backs really do end up picking it up when the weather gets cold and it's time for Steelers football. Tomlin has always gone to Najee, and I think he's going to do it again down the stretch. And he was really bad. If you look at his first 9 games, was horrendous. From that point on, though, it seemed like something flipped. He was coming off an injury in camp, really just lagging throughout those first half of the season. But over that second half, the running back 9 in fantasy points from week 9 on, the second half of the season. So I really do like Najee. He is my preferred play. And yet, all that being said, if I'm looking at maybe my running back 2 or 3, I still love sprinkling in some Jaylen Warren because I think the ceiling is significantly higher with Jaylen Warren. If you just look at his efficiency metrics, every single thing that tells you this running back is good, Warren was top 5 in almost every single one of them. First in missed tackles forced per attempt, 3rd in yards over expected per carry in 2023, 3rd in explosive run rate of 15-plus more yards. 8.1% of his carries went for 15 or more yards. 3rd in yard per contact, yards after contact per attempt. 2nd in elusive rating. 2nd in yards per attempt in general. So again, any metric that says, is this bad good? Warren was in the top 5. And then you look as a receiver, that role seems very secure here. 5th in receptions last year on just the 8th most targets, 74th in the league, was 5th in yards per route run. So even if he just maintains that quality receiving role, he's going to put up some solid fantasy numbers. We know every touch he gets is going to be maximized. And then you mix in that fact, I know Najee's never missed time, but what if this is the year? And certainly what if it happens in week 15, 16, and 17? You've got Jaylen Warren as the lead runner behind this improved line, and those suddenly we get the volume to match those absurd efficiency metrics. I can't see him being ranked outside the top 5 running backs in that case. This is kind of that a lot of people comparing him to the Tony Pollard of a couple years ago. I think it's a great comparison. It fits perfectly, and that's where Tony Pollard was going when he was just blew up in 2022 and was one of the most highly owned guys on championship rosters. Could see a very similar situation here where whether it's outplaying Najee Harris or ultimately an injury What if Warren ends up making the starts, taking over this backfield? It certainly could happen. I do love them both. I think they're both severely underpriced. I'm trying to leave every single draft. You get that Week 17 matchup with the Chiefs that has a lot of potential for some fantasy goodness, especially with all the defensive departures this offseason. So I love getting like a Marquise Brown in the middle rounds or Travis Kelce in the round 3-4 turn, and then getting that run back here with one of the Steelers backs is something I've absolutely been hammering in these drafts.
Yeah, 100%. And everything that the Steelers have done this offseason is telling us that they're going to just hammer the ball down people's throats. And they're going in the range of drafts where I'm looking to attack running backs. And in that round 9 or so, 8, between 7 and 9, just generally looking to take running backs. And both of them are going in that range. So, and given the offensive environment and what we think that they're going to do just stylistically, it makes so much sense to be grabbing one of these guys in just a good chunk of your drafts. And something that Pat Crane brought up on his podcast is the fact that even last year, when we weren't in an Arthur Smith offense with like ridiculous run rates and stuff like that, rushing attempts, just raw rushing attempts, that both of them could still get there. Last year, we saw in Week 17 what Crane points to all the time is Najee Harris, Week 17, he had 22, 25 carries, I want to say, some 20-plus carries. So he was getting leaned on in that game. He dominated the rushing workload, but Jaylen Warren still got there. He caught a bunch of passes. He found his way into the end zone and put up 18 fantasy points. So there's situations where Najee Harris can still dominate the rushing work and Jaylen Warren can still get there. So I think this is just going to be a very fertile environment for running backs in this Arthur Smith offense. So I'm very much on board with this. I'm looking to pick up these guys in a lot of drafts.
Yeah, great point too. That this is the range to attack running backs. There's a bunch of them in this range. Zach Moss, Raheem Mostert. We could go on and on, but I do prefer those Steelers running backs as well. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments. Check out some more videos and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.